Look at that. All right. Loving LinkedIn these 2 weeks. Hey, everybody. Brian Haugli here with SideChannel. I'll be joined shortly by DJ from Pathfynder. If you are on, just hang for a second and hopefully we can get everything rocking and rolling here because LinkedIn just loves to not have full instructions on how to do this correctly, which is amazing. But anyway, here we are. Good stuff. Just double checking here what we've got. If anybody's on, doesn't look like anybody is. All right. Amazing. Amazing. All right. Who do we have? Anybody joined? Drop a comment. Coming up in about a few minutes. Just hang tight. All right. If you are in the comments, please drop one in there. Be able to follow along down here. Say hello. I think Johnny can see you. Hi, how's it going? Good to see you. We're going live at 2 o'clock anyway, so hang tight. Hey DJ,
Hey,
welcome. We are
thanks.
we are actually already live because LinkedIn just fails to provide the right instructions on how to get things going. So
Perfect.
yeah, but we got two folks who have joined already, so not to worry. We'll just get going here in a second. This thing really does kick off at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll give people some.
Go. Just making sure that everything shows correctly on the screen. Okay, good. Both of us are on. Excellent. How you doing, man?
Good, good. How are you? How's the weather out east?
It's finally decided to be spring and jumping kind of into summer. So gonna catch a ball game tonight. Actually, nice enough to do that. It's not raining.
Nice.
Great.
How are they doing this year? My Cubs
Uh,
are doing good.
so it's not even the Red Sox. It's the Woo Sox. They're the feeder team, the AAA team going into the. So they're right here in Worcester, which is really great
Yeah,
to be able to go see. So company has season tickets to it, so we get to bring people out, and it's nice. It's a good time.
that's awesome.
That's right. You are still a Cubs fan, huh?
Yeah, even though I'm out here in the wilderness of Montana, I still root for the Cubbies.
That's okay. It's all right.
Number three in baseball right now. Heck of an offense, but we'll see. It's a long season.
Nice. All right. I am just double checking everything here. And we're also on YouTube, folks. So I just want to make sure that we're working on that site and we can just probably get to going right after I check this. We're at the top of the hour. Yep. All right. Showing up as, so hello to everybody on YouTube. All right. Good. Excellent. We are good across the board. And let's get to it.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining. So yeah, let's kick off. So hey everybody, Brian Haugli. I'm the CEO of SideChannel. I am joined today by GJ Fuller, CEO at Pathfynder. And we really want to just kind of talk about some basic stuff, maybe get into some fun things around just protecting your business. It's something that we're seeing. I know it's something that DJ's seeing. So let's go. DJ, just tell us a little bit about yourself and kick off. Floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brian, and it's good to be here, especially since we kind of kicked our businesses off many years ago, about the same time when it was a few people in a room. So it's great to see the growth on both sides. But yeah, DJ Fuller, CEO of Pathfynder, as Brian mentioned, we're a veteran-owned business that's focused primarily on elite offensive security. So that means pen testing to us, and some proactive defensive solutions as well. Yeah, I won't really talk about me too much. Spent a career inside of the DoD for a bit, and then on to corporate America. But really what we focused on from day one is recruiting, retaining the best and the top end of the hacker talent pool. And so really I view, if I am to talk about me a bit, I view my job as really just enabling and retaining these folks, giving them the tools they need to operate every day and work with the best customers, in the country that we work with. So really I can't speak enough about, our team and what they do every day to kind of deliver the elite results that we do.
It's amazing the similarities, right? You know what you've built and what you're doing, and what we're focusing on. Yet, I mean, those are the differentiations, right? Very very starkly different ways of what we're trying to address in cybersecurity. But I think that the main similarity is the importance that you and I put on the right people with the right experience to deliver what we expect for our clients and our customers, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, experience does matter, and in an industry that isn't, in the big scheme of things, an industry that is not that old.
Right.
Um, there aren't, if you find someone 25 years of intense experience in this industry, they're an old person in the industry. And so, I mean, that's gonna continue to evolve as more and more people are flooding into degrees associated with cyber. But we truly believe that, the areas that we operate in and that you operate in, for the folks that have read some of kind of the Malcolm Gladwell type of books where he talks about, you have to have a certain number of hours under tension to even hit a period of excellence. That's kind of how we look at it. And specifically in the pen testing world, there's, sadly, there's a bit of snake oil out there.
Sure.
There's a bit of things that people like to call pen testing that we don't necessarily consider pen testing. We think there's a big difference between a vuln management program and,
Right.
a kind of fingers on keyboard, nation state actor pen testing. And, the latter is where we're focusing most of our time. It's and as a company and as you build it and you find this talent and you bring them on board and you retain them, it does take you quite a while to be able to find all of the skill sets that you need to do all the different types of tests. I mean, every day of the week, multiple times a month, we're of course doing your traditional external test, web applications. We test hundreds of those a year. Internal pen tests, purple teaming, red teaming, depending on what you want to call it, which I'd like to talk a bit more about. We do and have the capability to test hardware, OT networks, mobile, iPad, wireless, and a couple other, smaller ones that, we don't need to bring up here. And then on the defensive side, it's just through those engagements that we've seen the need to help people proactively enhance their IR plan, build run books, help them with tabletops, which I know you guys do well additionally. So it's kind of where we focus. We try not to be everything. We try to say, this is all we do. This is all we're ever going to do, but we're going to try to be excellent and be the best at it in the country. But what
I was gonna say, sorry, man, I was on mute. I was gonna say that's a great way of looking at both building a business and obviously taking care of your clients. So if you're just joining us at the top of the hour here, we got started a little early because LinkedIn's a lot of fun. I am joined today by DJ Fuller, CEO at Pathfynder. Again, I'm Brian Haugli with SideChannel. So we're kind of just digging into like the broad spectrum idea of like protecting your business, and there's a lot of ways to do that. I want to kind of set the stage. Something I've always appreciated about pen testing, but I think something that is misunderstood or maybe I won't say abused, but misused by CISOs and practitioners when they reach out to folks like you or start looking at that pen test. What is it? What exactly is it? What should I expect out of it? Like you kind of touched on it, like it's not vulnerability, it's just not a vulnerability scan. It's, it's deeper than that. That's important to differentiate. I think some people don't get that, and that's unfortunate. But the other one is really that outside view in. And I want to preface it with the unencumbered outside view in. The what I've never understood is CISOs or folks who get a pen test and box it with so many exemptions and rules. Like you can't touch this, you can't touch that. It's as if, do you think the bad guys are playing by some rules that are holding them back? So I never got that when someone was like, "Well, we can do a pen test, but don't ever touch this area over here," even though it would be accessible to bad guys, which is why I'm paying you to replicate what the bad guys would do to then tell me so I can inform the. Like it doesn't make sense to me, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's that unencumbered aspect of what you're trying to do. And there's a lot of value as a CISO to get that outside view in because I'm over here building programs thinking I built the right program. No one can get in now. But I need somebody to test it, right? And likewise, when you go into an organization and they're like, "Hey, come test our, what, because we need it's requirement, regulatory or whatever. Please come test this for me." And then they get that back and they're like, "Wow, I need to build a program." Right? So like it's amazing how like both what we do and what you do inform and are really required by the other to check and balance what's going on. So talk to us about what you're seeing in that space from your vantage.
Yeah, I mean, a couple areas I'd like to dive into, but specifically what you just said, and that's where I think our teams have worked so well together, with some similar clients, is that, we do get big picture, like we do get a number of people that come to us for compliance testing.
Sure.
And in those cases, they'll definitely put the handcuffs on you because there's specific things. And it's unfortunate because there are people that go the compliance route and they have to test certain things for compliance checklists. And then they say, we'll do that one, but then we're going to do our real pen test as well. Right. And it's unfortunate that double the budget has to be spent when really they should just be doing one test and accepting that the findings are the findings. But um, but yes, like I would say the other big thing that we're seeing on that side is that, and that CISOs, people always ask, like, what industries do you work with and who are the most sophisticated? And I say truly we work with all industries. Sophistication, we have found, is dependent on the security leaders in the organization and the maturity of understanding of how important security is inside of the organization, right? Being empowered by the senior leaders down through the security team. And we find that's it. So sometimes we talk to, folks like, on at SideChannel, very seasoned CISOs. We come in, they know exactly what to expect on pricing, what the results are going to be, what to do with those. And then on the other side, we talk to some people that, I mean, they have no idea what these things cost. And sadly, these things are expensive right now. And the days of figuring out how to save money in your marketing budget to then spend money on security are over. Like security is a net new, budget item that, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, because it's unfortunate that, like, you know, companies that aren't part of the government and the military have to play defense against nation state actors, but it's where we are. And
Right.
so real money has to be spent. And so, I mean, I think that's one thing that we're seeing is we have seen in the last couple of years more maturity on the side of people understanding they can't just do check in the box anymore. They have to come in, take the handcuffs off. They have to spend real money to understand where the vulnerabilities are, because truly this is cybersecurity is one of the few, like, extinction events for a company
Oh
in
yeah.
this
Yeah,
world.
absolutely.
It's not if you don't hit, if you don't hit your marketing ROI for the year, the company goes out of business, but this is a true extinction event.
Yeah,
So
no, it definitely is.
um, I think that's a big thing that we're seeing right now from the maturity of the CISO, and maybe some still opportunity to mature in some areas, some industries.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities to mature. I completely agree. If you're on LinkedIn, folks, drop a comment right here on the right, or give some feedback. Would love to hear either your questions or just your insights, maybe even some use cases. Drop some stuff in there. We're gonna wrap this all into some posts and some other information You know me, I love doing marketing out of, like ideas just come out of this stuff. And it's like, why don't we talk more about, this thing? And it's like sometimes it's comments from people watching. So, get engaged, get involved, or just kick back and enjoy your really late lunch if you're on the West Coast. DJ, what are you seeing when, you've gotten engaged, right? You're stepping into, you've already you've got your ROE, you've launched, you're doing your work. What are the pitfalls, you wish clients would just be a little bit more open to and kind of understand like this is what you're trying to do. If you just kind of relaxed a little bit, it could go so much better. You could get so much more insight. What have you
Yeah.
seen kind of like as you've been, working like, man,
Yeah.
just guys, do this.
Great question. And I believe right now, and you see it change throughout the years of what is being valued inside of organizations. But I still believe probably inside of every company inside of the US, the last part of their network to mature from a cyber standpoint continues to be their internal network infrastructure. So we have seen we believe right now, like the number one type of engagement where companies are getting the most bang for their buck and the most learning, to your point about like, you know, coming in and on the backside of it, what could have been done better is really around what we consider purple teaming. And purple teaming to us, a lot of people are familiar with the term. To us, it's an internal pen test that's done in a collaborative fashion. Purple meaning, obviously the cyber world is much like the DoD, much like the military. Offense is red, defense is blue. The blend of the two becomes purple. So we prefer almost exclusively purple teams over red teams when we're doing internal pen tests because we're pretty much going to do the same things, but why not have your team for free, essentially, involved on the journey to learn? We really believe that the red and blue teams aren't that completely different. The hackers and the defenders aren't that different. We just look at the problem from different directions. So these types of engagements really do help enforce, all of these blue dollars spent on tools, process, and people, because otherwise, most of the cyber budget is on the blue side. And they have huge budgets, they spend all this money, and they're like, is it working? And maybe someone on the team will go, yeah, it's working. It's like, okay, I trust them, or, the marketing materials out of a tool that you bought tells you it's going to work. So you shake your head and say, yeah, it's going to work. But, we just find that this process being collaborative as we go, recognizing that we are not here. You want to talk about a pitfall? We are not here to get anyone fired. We are not here to have an I gotcha moment and then, drop a report in your lap and leave feeling like we won. That
Right.
is the objective. The
Right.
objective is number one, the objective is, to protect that company and make them better. And number two, like we have a duty to do to our country to defend against the adversaries that are beating at our doors from some of these other nation states. So really, we really find that collaborating daily inside of these purple teams, we made this move. Did you see it? No, we didn't see it. Okay, we didn't get this detection. Sometimes we end up on the phone daily with these companies as we're conducting these, you call it a week to 3 week engagements. Sometimes it's just weekly and we're kind of running through things. And oftentimes the reason that these are so important is real remediation is happening while we're doing the engagement. So instead of receiving a report 3 weeks later,
Right.
starting to remediate, retesting, we're retesting a lot of the criticals and highs before we even leave the environment. And now you're better protected against the enemy.
Right.
And it happens in a couple weeks instead of 2 months. But
Right. It's less static, right? It's much more of a dynamic process that you're involved with. Plus, you in like a real op tempo, if you are being attacked, you're not just sitting there and then, well, let me put it this way. You're trying to actively fix things that you're realizing the attacker is proving are broken, while that's happening and trying to thwart the enemy, right? Like trying to keep it at bay. It's not this like, oh, we'll just stop it and then we'll come back later and fix all this stuff. No, you need to you need to learn how to run things in parallel. And so by what your great explanation of like how a purple team should enact, those are all the parallel activities that could be going. And guess what? You're practicing it during a safe time.
Right.
You're not doing that for the first
Yeah.
time when
Under
you're
duress.
right, which is I always kind of joke with people. They're like, "Well, what should I do with this incident response plan?" I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't pull it out for the first time when you need it. We should test it. Let's write it. Do you understand it?" I had a really, and you guys might have actually been engaged at this client. We pulled you in, but we did a really great tabletop exercise, and the CEO, CFO, and the board at this company, very large manufacturing company, not that manufacturing company, different one, wanted to get engaged, and they were involved. And at the end of all of it, and it was strenuous. I mean, there were moments where the CEO and the chair of the board were like, well, that's your job. Why are you need to do that? It was like, wow, this is like they're figuring this out for the first time. We're watching it live. But at the end of it, it was all good. The CEO was like, pulls up the incident response plan. He's like, I'm gonna have 6 copies of this, like one in my car, one in my briefcase, one at home, one at my vacation house, one at the office. He's like, I am never gonna go anywhere without something like this, and we're gonna work on this. I was like, that is music to my ears. You're willing to do the work during a safe time. And I think that's important. Another way to engage pen testing activity is
Yeah.
to embrace that type of an idea. It doesn't need to just be this like sign a contract, go see what you can break into, give me a report, see you next year. Like there's many more ways to engage on activity like and get so much value out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would tell for the folks listening, I'm sure most people are doing tabletop exercises. Some may think they're getting, you know, of course, the way you sometimes get new customers with tabletops is they don't enjoy the one that they're currently engaged in. So whether you do it with you or you do it with us,
Yeah,
um, I would encourage folks to include, have a joint one with the IT team and the leadership, to your point, because for those listening out there, I think it's one of the number one ways to finally convince folks to get the budget that you need, right?
right,
When you hit the point in the tabletop where someone says, okay, well then why don't you pull those logs and do that? It's like, well, we can't pull those logs. Well, why not? Well, because the thing that we've been asking for forever, we need that, right? And then the
right,
light bulb goes off.
right.
So, I mean, but I would just tell everyone, like, if you haven't done a purple team yet with a very kind of mature elite team, um, if you only had $1 to spend in the year, it's where I would, on pen testing, that is, like, that is where I would put my money. Just because, you ask, like, what can people expect? Well,
Mhm.
what we find is you come out of that with not just a report, but a roadmap. And I'm not
Right,
saying we're going to build your roadmap for you, but we've heard this before. We've come in maybe after someone hired a large consulting firm that put 15 cyber things you need to do on a deck that I could have Googled for them for free. And they're left going, I get it, but like in what order? And like
right,
which of these apply and which apply now? And I only have this much money. So all of these things would take me 10 years to be able to afford to do.
right.
And what we find is when we're done with a purple team, like we really leave behind, I mean, it's not our opinion, it's data driven, um, results to where the vulnerabilities lie. And there should be no question, number one, two, three,
Yeah.
where you need to be spending your time and money.
Well,
And
because you've proven the point, right? You've proven, hey, you have vulnerabilities that are impactful to your organization. You've proved out the probability you got in, right? And you're showing somebody, here's the stuff that was easy for us to get in with. And I'm sure your approach, right? I know your approach because we've seen your guys' reports and they're stellar. Is, yeah, this is the easy way for us to get in, but we also figured out this way to get in is a little harder, but it wasn't impossible. So like you have to fix all of this stuff. It wasn't just like we figured this one way in, that's the one thing you got to fix and you're good to go. It's like, no, there's multiple avenues here. And that's when you now take that report, and I really want to hear your opinion on what is it that you want that CISO or that CIO that is now in possession of that amazing data? You've proved the point to them. that they've got Swiss cheese as a barrier. What is it you're really hoping that they do with that data that's going to be the right thing to do?
Yeah. And that's where it's been great, when we partnered with you all, because having a mature CISO that maybe it's not their first time in the seat,
Right.
that has experience with one MSSP, one, EDR solution, one of everything. When you have a broad experience, like your team does, and you can bring that and recognize which company you're dealing with, that's when that report can be very impactful, because it can become very specific on what needs to be solutioned to remediate it. And I mean, if I could offer, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, specifically on the internal side, but I'll provide some freebies here, uh, from probably people are probably interested. Well, okay, what are you finding? I would say I'll provide three that are probably the top
Perfect.
findings on an internal pen test, once we're inside. I would say number one, and it seems to be the number one on most reports, is lack of logging and alerting. Oftentimes we find security tools have been purchased, but never really tuned. Logs are not being collected from the right sources or even enough sources. And the
Ooh,
MSSP and SOC have never really been tested, to inform the alert and detection development. And what do I mean by that? It's you, you, I mean, for anybody who's been in the military, an athlete, I mean, you spend most of your life training and not doing your job, right? So the same thing applies here. If we use the military analogy again, like, you have to be constantly testing and training your SOC and your network to understand your weaknesses and where you need to fine tune your alerting, detection, and where your gaps are. So that's number one. And number two, I would say that we are seeing pop up the most is around misconfigurations in, Active Directory certificate services. We found,
interesting.
improper configurations of the ADCS infrastructure has often led to complete domain compromise simply by us just impersonating a user. And the majority of engagements, for those that are thinking about doing their purple team for the first time, the majority of those engagements for first-time customers in that area, we're able to privilege access, privilege access via vulnerable, ADCS templates and or misconfigurations. So that, and then the one that I'm most interested, I think, based on, I know when we've seen some of this in our customers, and then we have identified at times where I think Enclave has been a huge help to these customers, is in segmentation and flat networks. We find a lot that networks continue to be unsegmented and flat, specifically
Yeah.
in file share systems right now.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
the SharePoint network file storage, we find that these are flat, and not only are they flat, but the correct hierarchy hasn't even been created inside the network to provide the granular detail of groups that you need to create a structure.
Right.
Right? So it's almost like no structure inside of these. So
Mm,
now imagine us as an attacker, basic user. We're not even a privileged user. We're a day one employee user. We're coming in, we're navigating through these file shares in the matter of minutes up to executive level, finding plain text passwords. And now the domain's compromised, systems are ransomed, and it happens in
right.
minutes, not hours. So I'd love to get, that's what we see from our side, but I would love to get, your opinion on how you're seeing, your clients address those, or how you guys are going about recommending how to start to build structure and segmentation inside of
Yeah,
a
it's It's, I mean, so, I don't want to get too much into like, this isn't about our product, but,
Right.
we built it for a reason, right? We had a very captive audience, growing the largest vCISO practice in North America. And, you've got a very captive audience, right? Showing you their problems, right?
Right.
So we're stepping in just like any, experienced CISO at a larger enterprise. Step in, figure out what we're working with. What do I need to start building? Enact a pen test, to test my outside boundaries, give me outside view in, start building out my controls, aligning to some type of a framework, maturing my controls, putting in the blocking and tackling. Um, and yeah, that captive audience over the last 6 years, it just showed us a number of things, and that's why we developed Enclave to segment. But product aside, like why segmentation, right?
Mhm.
It's I explain this still to people. It's why do Navy ships and submarines, well, if they leak a little, why don't they sink?
Mhm.
Compartmentalization. Like it's
Yeah.
a
They
basic
don't know the,
concept. Yeah, been around for a long, long time. And guess what? It works in networking, right? It
yeah.
really does work. Can I make the place impenetrable? No. Can I slow or stop you from getting anywhere else in the house once you break in? Yes. Yes, I can. And what a lot of people I don't think understand or want to accept is, on the other side of the coin from guys like you and me are people who are hopefully going to wear orange someday when we
Mhm.
catch them, or they're just going to catch a bullet, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, right. And it's $1 billion industry over there
Right.
to be a bad guy, right? It's a billion
Oh, yeah.
dollar industry. And as $1 billion industry, they're operating exactly like any other business in $1 billion industry. There has to be an ROI on the thing that they're going to invest in to do. And if that company there is easier to break into than that company over there, guess which one I'm going after first? Now you can say all we want about commodity, shotgun approach to, with ransomware and all of that, but when you get to targeted attacks and even like step two targeted attacks after like a commodity, just kind of like spray and pray, there's still an ROI that's being figured out. What do I have to spend to break into this company and what's going to be my return once I break into that company? If you can start creating the barriers, whatever they are, segmentation on the network, segmentation within the user space, segmentation within the applications, right? Creating such disparity for access between your users and your administrators, different administrators
Mhm.
from other administrators, right?
Right.
Start thinking about entitlements creep. We talk about this all the time at SideChannel with clients. Hey, I guarantee you I know who has the most access in this company that works here. Oh, really? Who? Yeah. Tell me the top three people who've worked here the longest. I guarantee you they have the most rights to everything in this place. And I will tell you, we are 10 for 10 when we make that challenge to clients because
Mhm.
people don't tackle entitlements. They never get rid of rights. So it's very easy, right? Now you can start thinking about it as a bad guy. Who do I target? Oh, I'm going to target Bob, who's worked here for 25 years, because chances are
28 years on his LinkedIn
he's
going up.
got he's got access to everything. So it's not that hard to think about, this. And when you turn it around, when you need to now build a program to defend against that, as long as you keep that in mind, you can go, okay, this is where I need to make it more difficult for the bad guy, right?
Mhm.
And what I'm using as a CISO, what I'm using as a pen test is my ability to prove my hypothesis. I think this is the area I need to make harder for the bad guy. DJ, be the bad guy, try to prove me right or wrong. And now that's valuable for me because did I make the right bet? Did I make the right investment? Is my maybe I just built something little, right? And I'm now using that to define a real spend out of my budget for a
Mhm.
better enterprise solution. But you've helped me, not spend $1 million on a solution, only spend $10,000 on a little homegrown solution to stop something, but you've proved the theory. Hey, this is something we want to invest in, or this is something we don't want to invest in, right? Sometimes it's the negative is worth it too. Save your budget. So it's like as a CISO on the inside, like this is how I want to. Don't take this wrong. Like I want to wield your capabilities
Yeah.
as a tool, as an arrow out of the
Tip of
quiver.
the spear.
Right, exactly. And it's going to save me money or it's going to make me spend the right money. to again make it more difficult for the bad guys to do what they need, what they're looking to do. And that's really, I think, the name of the game. I think we need to stop thinking we're going to create these impenetrable fortresses. We
Never.
need to
Maybe
think
we've got
about
to find one.
slowing everybody down to
Yeah.
a point where they're just like, this isn't worth the investment. I'm going to go target these guys over here because they're easier. And guess what? The bad guys do.
Yeah.
They do. So yeah, I mean
I
that's
mean,
been my approach and
yeah.
view. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you made me think of a couple things, but um, we have probably in the last year and a half, we have seen more of I'll put them in the mature category. And by mature, I mean, they have more than one person managing security internally. They have,
Sure.
maybe even the SOC is internal to the company.
Okay.
Um, Probably the wrong term, but we're starting to do more continuous red purple teaming inside of these companies. So maybe they buy a certain number of hours a month, and maybe we don't do those hours specifically every month, but there's objectives. So we might start working with a CISO in January or the IT leader, whoever it may be, and they'll say, just what you just said. I think here's my hypothesis. If you guys could go do this and prove that, that would be not only helpful, but bad, right? It would
Right.
prove out maybe something I need to know, because I'm not sure if I spent money in the right place. So we go off, and what we find, for good or bad, we find that these types of engagements where we kind of, I don't want to say get lost in the network, but get a couple layers deep, to your point about compartmentalization. These types of engagements have rendered interesting and different results than an annual pen test.
Sure.
An annual pen test, we find, which is a great thing, the defenders come to work and really stare at the glass because they care about it and they care about their job.
Hmm.
Like, it's hard for them to do their job and then stare at the glass with that level of detail 365 days.
Right.
So when we do these types of engagements, the findings, some things that maybe wouldn't have been caught on an annual type of engagement have really, it's taught us a few things. Like, everyone still loves to do phishing. Phishing's great. Email providers have gotten really good at recognizing burning infrastructure.
Hmm.
So phishing's become actually a lot more difficult for the dollars that you want to spend on it. So we have started to also recommend new attack paths via employee laptops. And once we're kind of on that attack vector, really testing the IT support desk. I mean,
Hmm.
we've seen a number of compromises in the last several years of huge companies where someone calls in and says they forgot their password, and I mean, we
Right.
know of one in Las Vegas that was down for quite some time because of that type of attack.
Right.
So I would encourage folks to start thinking about different attack vectors when they're doing their tests, not just the same cookie cutter one every year.
Yeah. It's the line I love from Ocean's 11. He's like, you don't do the same con again. You do the next one. Right.
Yeah,
Like you
exactly.
gotta, the bad guys are changing it up. That's like, there is no playbook for how to be a criminal.
Yeah.
It's, they're flexible because they
Yeah.
can be. They're not operating within rules. Right. So yeah, what are you seeing kind of as people kind of move out of, obviously that people are still moving out of on-prem into cloud, adoption. Are you seeing anything like that's like really aha with the type of engagements you've got going on where, people have maybe rushed in. We had a great LinkedIn Live 2 weeks ago. We did this with Dutch Schwartz, who came over from AWS and just phenomenal brain on cloud security. And it's just like these amazing, like he's like the biggest problem is people just actually rush too fast into cloud adoption and forget to do all these like kind of required things. Are you seeing that manifest in your
I
testing?
mean, you probably could have taken the words out of my mouth.
Jeez.
We actually started at the beginning. I said, we're very niche. Like, we focus on offensive testing and a couple of proactive defensive things. But the one area that we were forced to um, create a new service around was doing some cloud security audits around email,
Mm,
Azure, AWS, because we found that the number of breaches coming out of people shifting to the cloud that haven't secured it properly we're kind of just dominating the numbers.
So it's
And
just
so I think,
outweighed
yeah,
traditional. Wow.
yeah, it's just because, I think everyone would nod their heads here if they were on camera, but most IT departments get told we're shifting to the cloud. You have, midnight to 4 to cut it over, and we need to be up and operational, right?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of work that goes on before then, but
Right.
everything about the cloud is centered around productivity. No
Right.
one starts the cloud conversation with security. On top of that, and this isn't a knock against anybody that's providing these solutions, but some of the back end systems and dashboards and admin consoles are not easy to navigate.
Hmm.
So for your basic, so for the person you have internal to a company implementing these new cloud solutions who are focused on productivity, it's not even like the security controls are staring them in the face.
Right.
We started, and I know that, and you guys have as well, but we've started focusing heavily on some of these cloud audits to help people, determine and secure kind of all of the security settings inside of these cloud platforms. It's, I'll tell you, kind of like your 10 for 10 comment, I'd say we've done over 100 of them. We have never once found a company that, let me put it this way, that was at the risk level of acceptance that they thought they were.
Yeah.
There was nothing to remediate or change to secure their cloud infrastructure. But it's a real concern right now as everyone's rapidly moving to the cloud, which is important,
Sure.
I think it's efficient.
Hey,
So
before we wrap up, I'm kind of curious. I'm a big GRC and controls nerd, which I don't know if I should keep admitting that, but well, I'm not writing a second book, so
yeah.
that's fine. Um, check that box. We'll do that again. Um, uh, what do you see? Like, how are you seeing people take all of the results that you have? Right, like you've produced this, executive briefing, out briefing. You've proved the point. They've got a beautiful report, data heavy.
Yeah.
How I mean, are people still just like shoehorning this into an Excel spreadsheet? Are they just keeping the PDF of the report and checking it off as they go? Like, how are your clients managing the outcomes that you've provided for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different across some use portals and they track it. If they're very SaaS-based companies, they're putting into Jira and tracking them there
Okay, good.
until it's closed.
So then they're like
Um,
associating, like they're like doling out tasks, due dates to
right,
individuals. Okay.
right. They're creating tickets.
Are you, do you see that as, you've got to come back in like 6 months or a year later? Are you seeing that type of an approach is like they're actually addressing them and closing the gaps because they've established accountability and ownership?
Yep, that's a good point. So we do offer, and most companies do, but we offer retesting of a lot of the criticals and highs
Okay.
within 12 weeks. So
Sure, sure.
it's not only on the customer, like we're very diligent to remind customers of what week they're in the process, which items they want remediated. They get 2 retests of those
Yeah,
items. So we're actually helping them manage the remediation and closing of the really critical items that we
right.
find.
Well, that's good.
Um, we also are very clear to call out repeat vulnerabilities that we find year over year inside of customers
Okay.
to make
Oh, I
sure
see.
that they are. But to your point, like, I don't run a security department inside of a company, but we see the ones who do it well are truly assigning owners tasks and making sure that they close them out
Hmm.
before they report out to the board
Yeah,
or
that's
report to
that's
the
really
lead.
what I'm asking about. Like anybody watching this is sitting there going, okay, what do I do with this information? Like how am I successful now that I know this information, right? So you're saying folks who've got a process, they establish ownership, deadlines, and they probably pressure test, it's like Bob comes back and is like, yeah, I fixed that. It's like, okay, prove it.
Right,
Like
and we
prove to me
retest.
you actually did that. You didn't just like say you did it.
And I think one thing that's unique about us, I said it earlier, we don't just leave a report and leave. If people need to jump on the phone and talk through how we did it and
Right.
then how best practice maybe of what we did. But yes, the folks who are taking accountability. Now, I will say that some of the items we find are not go toggle a switch, right? They're
Sure.
cultural. there are 18-month implementations of IAM solutions,
Yeah.
or how do we even start with identity access management? How do we even start by segmenting our network? So some of them aren't just, all right, we're going to remediate that in 3 months. It's okay. Let's put a project together. Let's assign what this is going to
Right.
take, a resource and a dollar standpoint. But the thing I would tell to all folks listening, everyone is in the same position. So if you're kind of shying away, like I don't really want to know that because it's going to be embarrassing, everyone is on the same journey right now, and you
You're in
just
good
have
company,
to start.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you're in good company. So, yes,
Well,
fortune
DJ,
favors the prepared.
yeah, it does. It does. It does. Yeah, I tell people that all the time. Like we sit down with new clients and they're like, yeah, I think we're not doing this or not like I'm like, hey, do you have a CISO? Do you have, who's in charge? They're like, we don't have that. I'm like, it's okay. I'm not judging you. Like I need to know. Like, what are we working with? And they're
Yeah,
like, yeah, it seems really bad. And generally I'm always just like, it's okay. You were in really good company with most everybody else. It's
yeah,
unfortunate that that's where we are, but like I meet strangers like, it's graduation season now. So like my kid is, doing graduation stuff and like all these other, things. And you meet all these brand new parents and inevitably it's like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm in cybersecurity. They're like, oh, that must be such a great field. I'm like, and I always say, yeah, I will unfortunately have a job for life. Like
yeah.
this is
It's
this is
true.
just
It's
consistently needs to get
unfortunate.
addressed.
It's unfortunate that Pathfinder has to exist, but I would rather do this work before someone in one of these other countries does it.
Yeah,
So,
you're not wrong, brother. DJ,
so I appreciate it, man.
where can folks find out more about you? Obviously, everything here on
Yeah.
LinkedIn is linked out to y'all, but just for the video.
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Also, you can find me at DJ at Pathfynder with our Y instead of an I for our name .io. But LinkedIn, probably the easiest place, and someone will get back to you. Also, our website, the info email will go to members of the team that will follow up pretty quickly.
And if I'm up in the Bozeman area
Yeah,
this
I mean,
winter,
if you come to Montana, depending on the time of the year, we'll either golf, fish, shoot, or ski. So just
oh,
let me know.
I do two of those. I could get into the other two. So
Yeah, and it's not hard. So,
DJ,
um,
appreciate it, man. This is
thanks,
awesome.
man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Great being here with you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so
All right,
much.
everybody. Brian Haugli with SideChannel again, joined by DJ Fuller from Pathfinder. You can check them out online, off of this post, off of on YouTube as well. You can follow us everywhere at sidechannel.com or following anything on hashtag CISOLife. I want everybody to be good, be safe, take care, and enjoy the beginning of summer. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Cheers.